Would you believe a billionaire gave up his entire empire just to read bedtime stories to 4 children he never knew were his? Ethan Marshall stood in his sleek, glass-walled office, staring out at the sprawling city below. Manhattan's bustling streets stretched beneath him, a maze of movement and ambition. At 35, Ethan had everything most people dreamed of: a billion-dollar tech company, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, and a designer suit wrapped around a frame sculpted by personal trainers. Yet, a quiet ache gnawed at him. 10 years ago, life had been simpler. Back then, he and Sarah Carter had been college sweethearts, living in a tiny, cramped apartment, surviving on instant noodles and big dreams. Sarah had worked double shifts at the hospital as a pediatrician, her kind eyes always filled with hope, even when money was tight. She had believed in Ethan when even he doubted himself. Her laughter had been his comfort, her quiet strength his foundation. But success had a way of changing people. Ethan's ambition turned into an obsession, and the man who once laughed with Sarah over cheap takeout now dined at the city's finest restaurants with industry moguls. Sarah's world remained simple, caring for children at the hospital, finding joy in her patients' smiles. But Ethan's world became a whirlwind of stock prices, high-profile meetings, and glitzy charity galas. It was at one of those galas that he met Vanessa Blake, a young, stunning model who seemed to embody everything his life had become. Glamour. Excitement, adventure. At 24, Vanessa represented the carefree spirit he thought he'd lost. She laughed at his jokes, called him brilliant, and made him feel alive again. Soon their secret lunches became dinners, their flirtation became an affair, and Ethan's life turned into a series of carefully managed lies. Sarah noticed the change. She noticed the late nights, the hidden text messages, the perfume on his suits. But when she tried to talk, Ethan brushed her off. "You're overthinking it, Sarah." "I'm just busy. It's the company." But she knew. The laughter they once shared was gone. Their quiet dinners became silent. Their dreams, once shared, now seemed miles apart. On their wedding anniversary, Ethan didn't come home. Sarah sat alone at the candlelit table, the carefully prepared dinner growing cold, the anniversary cake untouched. The next morning, she found a note on the kitchen counter, short, cold, and final. "I can't do this anymore." He didn't even have the courage to say it to her face. Ethan's new life was fast and thrilling. He moved in with Vanessa, their photos splashed across gossip magazines. Lavish vacations, glamorous parties, and endless excitement filled his days. Yet, even amidst the luxury, there were moments of emptiness. Moments when he would find himself staring at his phone, his thumb hovering over Sarah's name. Moments when Vanessa's laughter felt hollow, her beauty shallow. But he pushed those thoughts away. He was free, wasn't he? Free to live the life he deserved. What he didn't know was that across town, Sarah was facing a new reality. Alone in the penthouse they once shared, she found herself staring at an ultrasound screen. Her doctor's voice, a distant hum. 4 distinct heartbeats, quadruplets. Sarah's hand trembled as she touched her still flat stomach. Sarah's hand. James had walked away without a second glance, but now she carried not 1, but 4 lives within her. She should have been terrified, but instead, a quiet strength filled her. She wouldn't beg Ethan to come back. She wouldn't make her children a bargaining chip in his world of wealth and vanity. In that sterile, cold doctor's office, surrounded by bright monitors and quiet beeping, Sarah made a decision. She would raise these children alone. They would know love, laughter, and kindness, even if their father chose a world of luxury over them. And so, as Ethan's life became a blur of glamour and excess, Sarah's life transformed. She turned the empty penthouse into a warm, cozy home. The guest room became a nursery painted in soft yellows and greens. Tiny clothes filled the closet, and every night As she lay in bed, her hand on her growing belly, she whispered to them, "You are loved. You are wanted." Ethan had left, but Sarah was building a life not just for herself, but for the 4 little souls who would soon turn her quiet world into a place of laughter and light. The months that followed were a whirlwind for Sarah Carter. Morning sickness became a constant companion, but so did quiet determination. She worked long shifts at the hospital, her white coat barely able to button over her growing belly. Her colleagues noticed the change, some whispered, others offered gentle support. But Sarah never told them the full story. They knew she was expecting, but not that she was alone, not that the father of her children had chosen wealth and vanity over family. Dr. Emma Lewis, her mentor, was the first to guess. "Sarah, you're working too hard. With quadruplets, you should be resting, not running down these halls." "Yes, I need the work, Emma, and I need to stay busy," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. But as the months passed, even Sarah's determination couldn't hold back reality. Her body grew heavier, her energy waned, and Dr. Lewis finally put her on maternity leave. Sarah's once lively apartment became a quiet, sunlit sanctuary. The guest room transformed into a nursery, painted in soft pastels. 4 cribs stood side by side, tiny blankets neatly folded. Every night, as she lay in bed, her hand resting on her round belly, she whispered to her unborn children, "You are loved. You are wanted. I may be alone, but I have you." And yet she wasn't completely alone. Her colleagues from the hospital visited, bringing meals, helping assemble baby supplies. Mrs. Harper, a retired nurse who lived next door, became a comforting presence, always knocking with a warm smile and a pot of homemade soup. The media had long moved on, their attention focused on Ethan and Vanessa, the glamorous couple making headlines. Ethan was a rising star in the tech world, his face splashed across magazines, his company valued in the billions. Vanessa was a social media darling, her every post a curated image of luxury. Sarah saw their faces sometimes on the news, in magazines at the grocery store, but she didn't feel anger anymore. Just a quiet sadness. And then one rainy night, it happened. Sharp pain shot through her abdomen. Her hands trembled as she grabbed her phone. "Dr. Lewis, it's happening." And within an hour, she was in the delivery room, surrounded by a team of doctors and nurses. Her world blurred voices, bright lights, the rhythmic beeping of monitors. "Stay with me, Sarah. Breathe." Dr. Lewis's voice was calm, steady. Hours later, as the rain pattered against the hospital window, Sarah's exhausted eyes filled with tears of joy. 4 tiny cries filled the room. Aiden, Noah, Grace, Lily, her children, her miracle. Sarah held each of them, one by one, feeling their tiny fingers curl around hers, their soft cries muffled against her chest. "I promise," she whispered, her voice shaking, "I will always protect you. Always." The first few months with 4 newborns were a blur of sleepless nights, soft cries, and endless feedings. Sarah Carter's cozy apartment transformed into a nursery of constant activity. Tiny socks, warm blankets, and soft lullabies filled the once quiet rooms. Aiden, the oldest by minutes, was the most curious, his bright eyes always following Sarah around the room. Noah was quieter, often staring at the light filtering through the curtains, his small fingers reaching toward it. Grace was full of energy, kicking her little legs with a smile that could light up the darkest night. And Lily, the smallest, was gentle and calm, her tiny fingers always seeking Sarah's touch. Sarah's days became a careful dance of feeding, changing, and comforting. Her medical training helped, but nothing had prepared her for the exhaustion of being a single mother to quadruplets. Yet, every time she looked at their tiny faces, She felt a love so overwhelming it brought tears to her eyes. Mrs. Harper, her retired neighbor, became a lifeline. She would drop by each morning with fresh coffee, offer to hold a baby while Sarah showered, or simply sit with her, sharing stories from her own motherhood days. "They're beautiful, Sarah," Mrs. Harper would whisper, watching the babies sleep. "And they're lucky to have you." But the world outside was a different story. Ethan Marshall's face appeared on every magazine cover. His tech company soared to new heights. He and Vanessa Blake became a glamorous power couple, attending luxury galas, vacationing on private islands, and sharing perfect moments on social media. Sarah didn't look at the magazines anymore. They were just a reminder of the life she had left behind, or rather, the life that had left her. Instead, she focused on building a life for her children. Her maternity leave stretched into a careful balancing act. She managed the late nights and early mornings, the doctor's appointments, and the endless laundry. The children's tiny giggles and sleepy cuddles became her world. But money was tight. Even with her job as a pediatrician, 4 babies meant 4 of everything: diapers, clothes, formula. Sarah stretched every dollar, choosing second-hand toys and shopping sales for baby essentials. But she never once regretted her choice. On rainy nights, as the thunder echoed outside and the rain tapped against the window, Sarah would gather her 4 little ones in her arms, rocking them gently, whispering stories of bravery, kindness, and love. "Once upon a time," she would begin, her voice soft but steady, "there was a brave little family who loved each other more than anything in the world." And the babies would coo, their tiny hands reaching for her, their eyes wide with wonder. But as the children grew, so did the challenges. By their first birthday, Aiden was already trying to pull himself up, his determination clear. Noah was quieter, his deep brown eyes always watching. Grace was a bundle of energy, always crawling faster than her siblings. And Lily, though the smallest, had a quiet strength, always the first to calm when one of her siblings cried. Sarah's days were a blur of routines, but she cherished every moment. Their first steps, their first words, mama, and their first birthday, celebrated with a small cake and a room filled with laughter. Yet, as she tucked them in each night, a quiet ache lingered. She had given them everything she could love, security, joy. But she hadn't told them about their father. She hadn't told them about Ethan. In a small drawer beside her bed, she kept an old photograph, a picture of her and Ethan on their wedding day, both smiling, full of hope and love. Sometimes she would pull it out, her fingers tracing the edges, memories flooding back. "Will they ever know?" she whispered to the empty room. But as she listened to the soft breaths of her sleeping children, she made a promise to herself. They would know their father, but only when they were old enough to understand. Only when they were ready. For now, they had her, and she was enough. The years passed quickly, and the tiny apartment that once seemed spacious for one became a bustling world of laughter and tiny footsteps. Aiden, Noah, Grace, and Lily grew from wobbly toddlers into curious, energetic children. Each had their own personality, but together they were a whirlwind of joy. Aiden was the leader, always the first to try something new, whether it was climbing the couch or stacking blocks into impossible towers. He loved puzzles and asked endless questions, his curiosity matched only by his determination. Noah was quiet and observant. He loved books, even before he could read, his little fingers tracing the illustrations. He could spend hours sitting by the window, watching the rain, his thoughts a quiet mystery. Grace was a burst of energy. She danced to any melody, even if it was just the hum of the washing machine. Her laughter filled the apartment, her smile lighting up even the rainiest days. And Lily, the youngest, was gentle and thoughtful. She was the first to comfort her siblings when they cried, her tiny arms wrapping around them in warm hugs. Her bright eyes seemed to see right through to people's hearts. Sarah's life became a carefully orchestrated routine. Mornings were a dance of preparing 4 tiny lunches, packing 4 backpacks, and tying 4 pairs of shoes. Evenings were a mix of homework, dinner, bath times, and bedtime stories. Her career as a pediatrician continued to flourish. She became known for her patience and gentle touch, parents trusting her with their most precious treasures. But no one at the clinic knew that she was also a mother of 4. Sarah kept her personal life private, choosing to focus solely on her patients while at work. But home was a different world. A world of finger paint masterpieces taped to the fridge, bedtime stories read in whispers, and giggles that turned even the hardest days into memories of joy. Money was always tight, but Sarah managed. She carefully budgeted, shopping sales, choosing second-hand clothes, but never compromising on her children's happiness. Mrs. Harper, her neighbor, remained a constant support, often watching the kids when Sarah had to work late. "You're doing an incredible job, Sarah," Mrs. Harper would say, watching the children play in the tiny yard. "They're so full of life. That's because of you." But as the children grew, so did their questions. "Mommy, why don't we have a daddy like the other kids at school?" Aidan asked one quiet evening, his young voice filled with innocent curiosity. Sarah's heart clenched. She had always known this day would come, but no amount of preparation made it easier. "We do, sweetheart," she said gently. "You have a daddy. He isn't with us." Where is he?" Noah asked, his wide eyes filled with wonder. He lives far away," Sarah whispered. "But you have me, and you have each other. And that's a pretty amazing family." The children seemed to accept this answer for now, but Sarah knew it wouldn't always be enough. On rainy nights, as the children curled up on the couch for story time, Sarah would tell them tales of courage and kindness. Stories of explorers, brave knights, and gentle healers. But never stories of a prince and princess, because she didn't want them to think love was always a perfect fairy tale ending. Her own love story had ended, but a new one had begun, a love story between a mother and her 4 children. But as they grew, so did the world around them. Ethan Marshall's name seemed to appear everywhere. His tech company became a giant in the industry, his face gracing magazine covers, his voice featured in interviews. Once, while picking up groceries, Sarah saw a magazine with Ethan's face on the cover. Beside him stood Vanessa Blake, glamorous as ever. "The power couple of the tech world," the headline read. Sarah looked away, her heart a mix of sadness and calm acceptance. He had his world, and she had hers. But she never forgot. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet and the children were asleep, she would sometimes pull out an old photo, a picture of her and Ethan on their wedding day, both smiling, both full of hope. "Will they ever know?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. But she always put the photo back, tucking it away like a memory she couldn't quite let go of. And yet, even as the past lingered in her heart, her present was full of love, full of laughter, and full of 4 little souls who called her Mommy. Ethan Marshall's life was a series of victories, each one grander than the last. His company's stock soared, his face graced the covers of business magazines, and his name was synonymous with success. Vanessa Blake was always at his side, her radiant smile a perfect accessory to his glamorous world. But beneath the polished surface, cracks began to form. Vanessa's laughter grew sharp, her interest in Ethan waning as the thrill of their affair faded into routine. Their nights out became arguments whispered behind closed doors, their social media posts a carefully curated illusion of happiness. Ethan buried himself in work, his days a blur of meetings, launches, and press events. Yet, every night, when the city lights glittered outside his penthouse windows, a hollow emptiness settled over him. His world was full, but his heart was empty. One evening, as he scrolled through his phone, a notification popped up, an old memory photo from 7 years ago. It was a picture of him and Sarah, both grinning, their faces pressed together, her laughter frozen in time. His chest tightened. He tried to ignore it, swiped it away, but the ache remained. Vanessa's voice broke the silence. "Ethan, are you even listening?" she snapped, tossing her phone onto the marble countertop. "I'm talking about the gala next week." Sorry," he muttered, forcing a smile. "I've just got a lot on my mind." "You always do," she huffed, crossing her arms. "Sometimes I wonder if you even want this." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I built this life for us." "Boom! No, Ethan! You built it for you!" Vanessa shot back, her voice cold. "I was just here for the ride." Her words cut deeper than she knew. That night, as Vanessa disappeared into the guest room, a silent statement that had become more frequent, Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows staring at the city below. The world admired him, envied him, but he felt nothing. Across town, in a modest, cozy home filled with warmth and laughter, Sarah Carter was putting her 4 children to bed. Aiden was already lost in his favorite book, his brow furrowed with concentration. Noah whispered goodnight to his stuffed dinosaur, Grace danced around the room in her pajamas, and Lily snuggled close to her mother, her tiny fingers twisting in Sarah's hair. "Tell us a story, Mommy," Grace begged, her wide eyes sparkling. Sarah smiled, leaning against the bed. "All right, once upon a time, there was a brave explorer who traveled the world, but no matter where he went, his heart always led him home." And Lily's sleepy voice whispered, "Home is where you are, Mummy." Tears stung Sarah's eyes. "Yes, my loves. Home is right here." As the children drifted to sleep, Sarah quietly tidied the living room, folding tiny socks, straightening the storybooks, and checking her phone for any messages from work. Her life was a steady rhythm of early mornings, long workdays, and bedtime stories. It was exhausting, but it was real. But that night, as she slipped into bed, her mind wandered. A headline had caught her eye earlier: "Ethan Marshall and Vanessa Blake. Are they drifting apart?" She didn't read the article, but the image of Ethan, older but still handsome, lingered. She reached for the drawer beside her bed, pulling out the old photograph of her and Ethan on their wedding day. His smile was so genuine, his eyes full of hope. How had they become strangers? "Stop it, Sarah," she whispered, tucking the photo away. "He chose his path, and you have yours." But as she lay there in the quiet darkness, she couldn't help but wonder, did he ever think of them? Did he ever wonder what became of the life they once dreamed of? Miles away, Ethan stood in his penthouse, staring at the empty space where Vanessa's shoes used to be. She had left that night, a whirlwind of angry words and slammed doors. It wasn't the first time she had left, but somehow it felt like the last. He poured himself a drink, the amber liquid swirling in the glass. Memories of Sarah flooded his mind. Her laughter, her gentle touch, the way she used to believe in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. What was he doing? What had he become? Grabbing his phone, his fingers hovered over Sarah's contact. The number was still there, unchanged. A message typed itself out in his mind. "I'm sorry. I never stopped thinking about you." But he didn't send it. He didn't have the courage. He stared out at the city, the skyline a sea of glittering lights. Somewhere out there, she was living a life without him. And for the first time in years, Ethan Marshall felt truly alone. The years continued to pass, and while Ethan's world remained a maze of business deals, Sarah's life became a tapestry of simple joys and quiet struggles. Her 4 children were now 5 years old, a whirlwind of energy, curiosity, and laughter. Aiden was the natural leader, always the first to help his siblings, his bright eyes filled with confidence. Noah, quiet and thoughtful, loved to read, his little hands tracing the pages of picture books. Grace was a burst of energy, her laughter filling every room, while Lily, the youngest, was gentle and empathetic, always the first to offer a hug. Sarah's days were a delicate balance of work and motherhood. Her job at the clinic flourished, her reputation as a compassionate pediatrician growing. Parents trusted her with their children, not knowing that she juggled the care of 4 little ones at home. But the children were growing more perceptive, and so were their questions. "Mommy, why don't we have a daddy like the other kids?" Grace asked one sunny afternoon, her wide eyes curious. Sarah's heart tightened. She had always known this question would come, but that didn't make it any easier. "You do have a daddy," she said gently, "but he lives far away." "Does he know about us?" Aidan asked, his young face serious. Sarah hesitated. "No, he doesn't." "Can we see him?" Lily whispered, her voice soft. Sarah knelt down, pulling them all into a gentle hug. "One day, maybe. But right now, you have me. And I promise I will always be here for you." The children seemed to accept this for now, but their curiosity lingered. Sarah knew that one day she would have to tell them the truth. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan's life was unraveling. His relationship with Vanessa had become a hollow shell. The glamorous events, the luxury vacations, they were all a distraction from the emptiness gnawing at him. One evening, as he sat alone in his penthouse, scrolling through his phone, he stumbled upon a news article. Dr. Sarah Carter, Pediatrician of the Year. The photo showed Sarah standing in front of a children's clinic, a gentle smile on her face. Ethan stared at the image, his chest tightening. Memories flooded back the laughter they once shared, the nights spent dreaming of a future together, a future he had thrown away. On impulse, he searched her name on social media. Her profile was private, but one public post caught his eye, a photo of 4 tiny hands, fingers intertwined, with the caption, "My greatest blessings." His mind raced. Was it possible? But before he could think, his phone rang. Vanessa's name flashed on the screen. He hesitated, then let it ring out. He couldn't do this anymore. The next morning, Ethan arrived at his office, but his focus was gone. Numbers blurred on the screen. Voices of his team became a distant hum. He couldn't shake the image of Sarah, couldn't escape the question gnawing at him. That evening, he stood in his penthouse, staring at the skyline. He could see everything from up here, the city that admired him, the empire he had built. But he felt nothing. His phone buzzed again, Vanessa, calling for the 3rd time. This time he answered. "Ethan, are you coming to the gala tonight? Everyone's expecting us." "Oh, I'm not coming," he said, his voice calm but firm. "What, Ethan, this is huge." "You can't just—" "I'm done, Vanessa," he whispered. "I'm done pretending." Silence. Then her voice turned cold. "Fine, do whatever you want." And she hung up, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt free. But freedom came with a cost, the weight of regret, the ache of loss. He needed to know. He needed to see Sarah, to understand if those tiny hands in the photo meant what he thought they did. The next morning, Ethan stood outside the children's clinic, his heart racing. He watched as parents came and went, children laughing, doctors in white coats moving with calm purpose. And then he saw her. Sarah, walking out of the clinic, her hair pulled back, her white coat blowing gently in the breeze. Her face was calm, her eyes kind, just as he remembered. And then behind her, 4 little ones ran up to her, their voices a joyful chorus. Ethan's breath caught, his chest tightened. They looked so much like her and like him. Aidan with his confident stride. Noah clutching a small book. Grace, spinning in a circle, laughing. Lily, gentle and sweet, holding Sarah's hand. Ethan felt his legs weaken. They were his. They had to be. 4 tiny faces, 4 pieces of a life he never knew he had. Without thinking, he stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper. "Sarah. Sarah." She. Her name hung in the air, barely a whisper, but it was enough. Sarah Carter turned, her breath catching as she saw him, Ethan Marshall, standing just a few feet away, his face a mix of shock, hope, and something else she couldn't name. The children laughed and played around her, unaware of the man staring at them with wide eyes. Aiden chased Noah around the bench, Grace twirled in her pink dress, and Lily clung to Sarah's hand, her curious eyes on the stranger. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Sarah's voice was calm, but her heart raced. I was in the area," he stammered, but they both knew it was a lie. His gaze never left the children. "Are they?" "Yes," Sarah whispered, her voice steady. "They're yours." Ethan's knees felt weak. He reached for the back of the bench, gripping it for support. His mind raced 4 children. His children. How had he missed this? How had he lived all these years without knowing? "Sarah, I didn't know," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I didn't. You didn't want to know," Sarah interrupted gently, her gaze unwavering. "You chose your path, Ethan, and I chose mine." Silence hung between them, thick and heavy. Ethan's eyes never left the children. Aiden laughed as he caught Noah, the 2 boys tumbling to the grass. Grace joined in, her giggles a melody, while Lily leaned closer to Sarah, her little hand squeezing tighter. "They're beautiful," Ethan whispered, his voice filled with awe. "They are," Sarah agreed. "They're all so happy. They have a good life. Can I meet them?" Ethan's voice was a plea now. Sarah hesitated. Her mind raced. She had spent years protecting her children, building a safe world for them. And now the man who walked away wanted to step back in. "Not yet," she said softly. "Not until we talk. Not until we figure out what this means." Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving the children. "Please, Sarah." "I need to be part of their lives." "We'll see," Sarah replied, her voice measured. "But they come first." "Always." Ethan watched as she guided the children toward the car, his heart twisting with each step. Aiden waved at a bird in the tree, Noah clutched his book, Grace skipped along the sidewalk, and Lily glanced back at Ethan with quiet curiosity. Then they were gone. Ethan stood there, the world a blur around him. His chest ached, his mind raced. He had always thought he was free to build his empire, free to live his life on his own terms, but now he realized how much he had lost. Back in his penthouse, Ethan poured himself a drink, but it tasted like ash. The city lights glittered outside, but they felt cold, distant. His phone buzzed a message from Vanessa, another invitation to a glamorous event. He didn't reply. Instead, he opened his laptop, pulling up a blank email. He typed Sarah's name, his fingers hovering over the keys. "Sarah, please. Let me be part of their lives. I know I've made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But they're my children too." He deleted it, started again. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Please, can we talk? Delete." Finally, he settled on one sentence. "Sarah, please let me help." He hit send. Across town, Sarah's phone buzzed. She stared at the message, her heart a mix of anger, fear, and something she didn't want to name hope. That night, as she tucked the children into bed, their soft voices filling the quiet apartment, she whispered, "Mommy loves you." Always. But as she stood by the window, watching the city lights, her mind wandered. Could she trust Ethan again? Could she let him be part of their lives without breaking the world she had built? Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Please, Sarah. I won't give up on them. Or on you." Tears filled her eyes. This wasn't a fairy tale. This wasn't a perfect love story. It was messy, painful, real. And it was far from over. Days turned into nights, and Sarah found herself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Ethan's messages kept coming, each one more heartfelt, more desperate. "Please, Sarah, let me be part of their lives." But she didn't reply, not at first. Instead, she watched her 4 children with a mix of pride and fear. Aiden was becoming more curious, asking questions about the world. Noah loved his books, his gentle nature, a comfort to his siblings. Grace danced everywhere she went, her laughter a melody in their tiny home, and Lily, sweet, sensitive Lily, had a way of seeing right through Sarah's smile. "Mommy, are you sad?" Lily whispered one night, snuggling close. "No, sweetheart," Sarah lied, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "I'm just tired." But she wasn't just tired. She was scared of letting Ethan back in, scared of the chaos it might bring. But also scared of keeping him out, of denying her children the chance to know their father. After a week of silence, she finally replied to Ethan's latest message. "We need to talk." "No promises. Tomorrow, 2 p. Meet at Maplewood Park. The next day, as she watched her children play on the swings, Sarah's heart raced. She had chosen a public place neutral, safe, and as the minutes passed, she wondered if he would come. But then she saw him. Ethan, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, his usual confident stride now hesitant. He looked older, his face marked by something beyond the stress of business regret. "Sarah," he began, but she held up a hand. "I'm here for them, Ethan, not for us." He nodded, his eyes never leaving her. "I know, I just need to know them." "Why now?" she demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. "After all these years, why do you suddenly care?" Ethan's shoulders slumped. "Because I lost everything that mattered, and I didn't even know it." Sarah's gaze softened, but she didn't let go of her resolve. "They're not just some prize you can claim, Ethan. They're children." "My children. I've raised them. I've been there for every tear, every laugh, every scraped knee." "You can't just show up and expect." "I don't," Ethan interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't expect anything. I want to try." Aiden noticed them then, waving enthusiastically. "Mommy, look at me!" he shouted, hanging upside down from the monkey bars. Ethan's eyes filled with wonder. "Which one is he?" "That's Aiden," Sarah replied, her voice softer. "He's the leader, always trying new things." "Oh, and the others?" Ethan whispered, his gaze shifting. "Noah, with the book on the bench, he's quiet, loves to read." "Grace is the one dancing, of course. And Lily, she's my gentle heart." "Shh." Ethan's eyes shimmered with tears. "They're incredible." "Yes, they are," Sarah whispered, pride filling her voice. They watched in silence for a moment, the sounds of laughter filling the air. Finally, Sarah spoke again. "If you really want to be part of their lives, you'll do it on my terms. Slowly, carefully. They don't know you. They don't need a stranger appearing out of nowhere." And Ethan nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." "We'll start with you visiting as a friend," Sarah said. "Someone I used to know, someone who wants to be part of their world, but no promises." "If they don't want this, I won't force them." "I understand," Ethan whispered, his voice shaking. "Thank you, Sarah." But as they stood there, side by side, watching their children, Sarah's heart twisted. She wanted to protect them, but she also wanted them to know the truth, to know that once she had loved their father, and in some strange way, maybe she still did. That evening, as she tucked the children into bed, Aiden asked, "Mommy, who was that man at the park?" "He's an old friend," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. "Will we see him again?" Lily whispered. Sarah hesitated. "Maybe. We'll see." But as she stood in the hallway, listening to their soft breathing, she knew this was just the beginning of a complicated, beautiful, and painful journey. and as Ethan walked back to his car, a quiet hope bloomed in his heart. He had a chance, a small, fragile chance to be part of something real, to be part of their world. Ethan's first visit was awkward, and Sarah knew it would be. She introduced him as an old friend, someone who wanted to spend time with them. The children were polite but curious. Aiden, ever the leader, asked the most questions. "Did you know Mommy a long time ago?" he asked, his bright eyes searching Ethan's face. "Yes," Ethan replied, his voice steady but his heart racing. "A very long time ago." Noah stayed close to Sarah, his quiet gaze always watching. Grace danced around the living room, showing off her latest ballet moves, while Lily sat beside Sarah, her tiny hand gripping her mother's. Ethan smiled, trying to keep things light. "I used to know a woman who loved to dance just like that," he said, his eyes meeting Sarah's. Grace's eyes sparkled. "That's me. Mommy says I dance all the time." "She's right," Ethan whispered, a warm ache filling his chest. The first visit was short, just an hour, but it was enough to leave Ethan both elated and devastated. His children were incredible, smart, curious, and full of life, and they had no idea who he really was. "Thank you, Sarah," he whispered at the door as he prepared to leave, "for letting me meet them." Sarah's expression was guarded. "It's a start, Ethan, but this isn't just about you, it's about them." Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a familiar presence. Sometimes he brought books for Noah, who eagerly listened as Ethan read aloud. Other times, he kicked a soccer ball with Aiden in the park, the boys' laughter filling the air. Grace showed him her dance moves, spinning and leaping, while Lily simply sat beside him, watching, her quiet presence a comfort. But as the children grew more comfortable around him, they also grew more curious. "Mommy," Aiden whispered one night, "is Mr. Ethan our daddy?" Sarah's heart stopped. She had known this question would come, but not so soon. "Why do you ask?" she replied gently, tucking the blanket around him. "He knows so much about you," Aiden whispered, "and he looks at us like he knows us." He was someone very important to me," Sarah whispered, her voice wavering. "And he cares about you." Aiden nodded, but the question lingered in his eyes, and Sarah knew it was only a matter of time. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan brought a photo album. He sat with the children, showing them pictures of places he had traveled, stories of his adventures. But in the middle of the album was a photo that stopped everything. A picture of a much younger Ethan and Sarah, arms wrapped around each other, laughing. "Who's that?" Grace asked, her finger on the image. Ethan hesitated. That's me, and your mom." The children looked at Sarah, their eyes wide. "Mommy?" Noah whispered. Did you know him a long time ago?" Sarah's throat tightened. She knelt beside them, her hand resting on the album. "Yes. A long time ago, your daddy and I were together." Lily's voice was a soft whisper. "Daddy?" Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, sweetheart." "I'm your daddy." Silence hung in the air. The children stared, their young minds trying to process what they had just learned. Aiden was the first to speak. "Why didn't you tell us?" he whispered, hurt in his voice. Sarah's heart broke. I was trying to protect you." "From Daddy?" Grace asked, tears welling in her eyes. "No," Ethan whispered, his voice shaking. "No, not from me, but they didn't understand, not yet." The joy of their discoveries was clouded by confusion, and Sarah saw the trust in their eyes waver. That night, the children were quiet. Sarah tucked them in, her heart heavy. Lily looked up, her voice a soft whisper. "Mummy, will Daddy come back tomorrow?" "If you want him to," Sarah whispered, tears stinging her eyes. Ethan sat in his car outside, his head resting on the steering wheel. He had dreamed of this moment of them calling him Daddy, but not like this. Not with confusion and pain in their eyes. But he wouldn't give up. Not this time. The next day, he arrived again. This time, he brought a board game, a simple way to sit together, to laugh, to be a family, even if it was messy. And as the children giggled, as they argued over the rules, as Lily leaned against his shoulder, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Time became a gentle teacher, softening the sharp edges of confusion and fear. Ethan's visits grew more frequent, and though the children now knew he was their father, they still called him Mr. Ethan, a quiet bridge between the world they knew and the world they were just beginning to understand. Ethan was patient. He didn't push. He played board games with them, helped Aiden with his soccer drills, read books with Noah, spun Grace around in the living room, and sat quietly beside Lily, who always seemed to sense when he needed someone close. One Saturday afternoon, as rain drummed against the windows, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Sarah. A plate of fresh-baked cookies sat between them, the warm scent filling the air. "They're incredible," he whispered, watching the children play in the living room. "I missed so much." "Yes," Sarah replied, her voice calm, "but you're here now." Ethan looked at her, his gaze filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah, for giving me a chance." "It's not just about you, Ethan," she said gently. "It's about them. They deserve to know you." The months passed, and Ethan became a steady presence. He helped with school pickups, joined family movie nights, and even attended parent-teacher conferences. The children began to call him Dad, first hesitantly, then with joy. But the real test came on a sunny autumn morning. The school was hosting a family day, and the children were excited. Aiden had a soccer match, Noah was reading his first poem on stage, Grace was dancing, and Lily had her art displayed in the hallway. "Will you be there, Dad?" Aiden asked, his eyes hopeful. "Of course," Ethan replied, his heart swelling. "I wouldn't miss it." That morning, Ethan stood beside Sarah, cheering as Aiden scored a goal, his voice loudest in the crowd. He clapped proudly as Noah read his poem, his voice a little shaky but determined. He laughed and spun Grace in a hug after her dance, and he knelt beside Lily, admiring her painting, his eyes misting with pride. "I'm so proud of all of you," he whispered, wrapping them in a hug. But as the day wound down, as parents and children packed up, Ethan felt a familiar ache. He had a meeting in an hour, a deal that could mean millions. His phone buzzed with reminders. "You can go, Ethan," Sarah whispered, seeing the conflict in his eyes, but he shook his head. "No. This is more important." He called his assistant, rescheduling the meeting. For the first time, he chose his children over his empire. That evening, as they walked home, Aiden reached for his hand. "Will you always stay with us, Dad?" Ethan's heart swelled. "Always, buddy." Always. The quiet bond between him and Sarah grew too. They weren't the same people they had once been. But they were something better, partners in parenting, allies in love for their children. There was no rush to redefine their relationship. They focused on what mattered, the four little souls who had brought them back together. And one night, as Ethan read a bedtime story, with Lily curled against his chest, Noah leaning against his side, Aiden and Grace snuggled close, he whispered, "I love you all so much." "We love you too, Daddy," they chorused, their sleepy voices filling the room. From the hallway, Sarah watched, a soft smile on her face, her heart full. Ethan looked up, his eyes meeting hers, and in that moment, they didn't need words. They had built something beautiful from the ashes of what they once lost. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan Marshall was truly home. In life, we often chase after success, wealth, and recognition, believing that they will bring us happiness. But true joy is rarely found in the glittering lights of fame or the weight of a bank account. Instead, it is hidden in the quiet, everyday moments, in the laughter of children, the warmth of a loved one's embrace, and the peace of knowing you are loved. Ethan Marshall's story is a reminder that while ambition can build empires, it is love that builds families. He learned, through loss and regret, that the most valuable treasures are not found in boardrooms or stock portfolios, but in the hearts of those who call you Dad. But one for older adults who may feel time slipping by, remember this: it is never too late to make things right, to heal old wounds, or to reconnect with the ones you love. Whether it's a phone call, a letter, or simply being present, you have the power to create memories that matter. Life is not measured by the success we achieve, but by the love we give and the lives we touch.